Okay, so we we're talking about existentialism and its claim that existence precedes essence, that there's no pre-existing human nature. For Sartre, there's no such thing as universal human nature, but human beings as a group determine what it is to be a human being. And they do this because Sartre is an atheist, as we saw, and does not believe that there's any pre-existing design or human nature put into us by a supreme being, and neither does he think that it's built into the nature of things. So the responsibility then lies with us as human beings to remake our own nature, or to make our own nature, both collectively and individually. And the example I used at the end of the last class was, say you want to make yourself into a nurse. You want to get into the nursing program. Well, note that what directs your decisions, or say what directed your decisions at the beginning of the semester to sign up for this philosophy course, was that future vision, right? That vision that said, I want to get into the nursing program, I want to be a nurse, and so one of the things that I've got to do to fulfill that vision is to get a certain number of general ed credits under my belt. And one way I can do that is to sign up for a philosophy class. Hence my decision, my free decision now to sign up for the class is a decision I make because of what I ultimately want to make my nature to be. And of course this goes for any prospective, future employment path, right? Future goal. So man in the generic sense is nothing else but what he makes of himself, right? Now, note what Sartre is saying here. What is determining our decisions? Sartre's example, he uses Constantine, who is planning the city of Constantinople and makes those decisions that are in line with that. When they built that STEM center across the street, they had a plan, a vision that they followed, and that determined their day-to-day decisions in constructing that building. So note, what is determining our decisions here? Not, for Sartre, not our causal past, but a vision we have about who and what we want to be in the future, just like the vision of what that building is supposed to be guides the day-to-day decisions of the people. So that's one of the reasons he says we're not constrained by our causal past. If we have future visions, we can realize them. So it's in making these free choices that we bring about our vision of who and what we want to be. We make our own essence. So this makes us responsible for who we are. We freely determine our essence because existence precedes essence. We first exist, then, afterwards, we determine who and what we're to be. So we're thus responsible for our essential nature, and you can see how free choices play into constructing that nature for Sartre. And we're responsible, he says, for all human beings. Now, this is a claim that I don't know if Sartre tries to make in this piece to tie himself in with other theories of secular humanism, like utilitarianism that we're going to talk about, like Kant's theory. I don't think he can do it. Kant can say I ought to make those decisions today if I wonder what's morally right, that I would want everybody to make in the same situation, because Kant thinks there are universal moral principles. Sartre does not. And but he says this responsibility we have, if we recognize it, creates a certain amount of anguish. And he says when we choose, we also say that the choices that are valuable for us are valuable for other people. And so he says when we choose, we should ask, what if everyone did this? Again, Kant can ask this because he believes in universal moral truths. I don't know if Sartre can. In other words, I don't think he defends himself adequately against the claim that for him morality is just subjective. It's each individual's call. And I think you see this in this example. I had a Greek professor who had gone through World War II. I think I mentioned that in the previous class. And Sartre is very influenced by World War II. This article was written, I think it came out in like 1949, right? Even though it's been republished oodles of times over the years. And so he has a lot of World War II illustrations, and Sartre actually participated in the French underground, the resistance. He, among other things as a writer, he published anti-Nazi pamphlets against the Nazi occupiers of France in World War II. So he says, here's a military leader. Say there's a machine gun nest in the way, in the direction you're going in. And you have the decision, well, should we try to take out this machine gun nest, or can we leave it there? And he knows if he orders his soldiers to attack the machine gun nest, maybe a dozen men will be killed. And he feels anguish at this decision. But Sartre says he gives an option value by choosing it. And this is Sartre's response, and I'm going to skip past those later slides because I also use this to discuss a particular version of moral theory called ethical subjectivism, where it claims that morality and ethical right and wrong are whatever an individual thinks is right and wrong. There are no universal standards. There aren't even cultural standards. So to say that he gives an option value is much to say that he makes it right by choosing it, that his choice makes it right rather than it's being antecedently right, whichever he chooses to do. And this is also the response Sartre gives to a student of his who comes with a moral dilemma to him. He's coming from a broken family. He's all his mother has left. The war's going on. So what is his primary moral responsibility? To stay in France, Nazi-occupied France, and take care of his mother, or to try to flee and hook up with the French forces that are assembling in England for an eventual invasion of France? Is it a responsibility to his country over his family and mother? And the response that Sartre gives to the student is choose. Simply make a choice, and your choice makes that right, whatever it turns out to be, not the other way around. So this is like saying there is no pre-existing morality, and there is no pre-existing morality for Sartre. Now, for Sartre, there's one big no-no. Do not act in bad faith, mauvaise foi in the French. How can you act in bad faith? Well, he says, and this relates to this concept of our being free persons. He says, we are free. His own phrase is, we are condemned to be free. That is, we are free in our choices and have responsibility for them, even if we don't want to accept that responsibility. And he says many people don't. And we try to escape our responsibility and the anguish that comes with it, he says, by pretending we're not free. So this is his view of determinism, that it's an illegitimate way out. We're denying our human freedom by pretending we're determined, say, by natural causes, like the determinists that we've studied pretend. But for Sartre, you can act in bad faith even if you pretend that your decisions are constrained by an already existing universal morality. I mean, suppose a Catholic couple has a decision about abortion, and they say, well, we can't have an abortion. We've got to carry the child to term because our faith says that child is a human being from the moment of conception. And so pre-existing morality coming down to us from the church says we don't have the choice to abort the child. Well, Sartre's response to that would have been, you're wrong in thinking that pre-existing morality is there, constraining your choices, and you're in bad faith. So what do we do then? For Sartre, we pretend that we're like inanimate things rather than being human beings. His word for the kind of existence human beings have, the free existence to choose their own path, is être pour soi, being for itself. But the existence of the inanimate things around us, things that are determined by causal laws, that is être en soi, being in itself. So he says essentially, if we deny our freedom of choice, we are relegating ourselves as human beings from the level of a human being to the level of inanimate things. And we're acting in bad faith. So being for itself is human existence, being in itself is the existence of things in nature which Sartre will admit are determined by causal laws. But he says we're not. Now, I'm going to skip past a few of these slides because they deal with the centrality of Sartre's moral thinking, and that we have no guidance for making moral decisions other than our own inner our own choices. So he denies, we're emphasizing free will here and determinism. So we saw that determinism is the view that all choices are determined by prior causes, that there is no genuine human freedom of choice. For at least in metaphysical determinism, there is no metaphysical freedom. So, but for Sartre, again, his starting point for his philosophy is not what the scientists are saying. For other philosophers, it is. But Sartre says his starting point is where Descartes started, his own subjective inner experience. He calls it subjectivity. I'm not going to ask you that word, but so this is what Sartre's view of this deep inner conviction we have that we're really free in making our choices. He says, let's take that as fundamental. Let's forget what the scientists say is going on with our being determined by prior physical causes because we're material beings. And so for Sartre, man is free, man is freedom, man in the generic sense. Note the last phrase here. For Sartre, we are condemned to be free and responsible for everything we do. That's his view. So again, he argues we don't have moral guidance from anywhere. We just need to choose our course of action. This is the story I mentioned about the student who had the choice between whether to stay in France with his mother or flee to England. But here's Sartre's bottom line. Man is nothing else but the sum of his actions, and we're what we make of ourselves. Now, he talks about what he calls our facticity, because somebody can respond by saying, look, I don't have the freedom to do anything I want to, not just legally, but you know, I can't walk across North Avenue and not pay attention to the cars, right? If I get run over by a truck, I'm going to have a very bad day. You know, I can't jump out that window, flap my arms, and fly. I can't drink a deadly poison and survive. Now, yeah, for an alcoholic who's used to drinking hard liquor in great quantities can drink a fifth of scotch in a day and survive. Other people who aren't used to that might kill themselves by doing the same thing. Drinking a whole fifth of scotch, not just having a... So we can adjust ourselves to what might be poisonous, but the thing is, for other poisons like maybe arsenic or cyanide, we can't adjust ourselves to those. So you see here, I think Sartre kind of gives the game away. He talks about this as being our facticity, but isn't it really that we're constrained in some of our decisions by a pre-existing human nature? Exactly the thing that Sartre wants to deny. I took a graduate seminar on what they call action theory, which is just on freedom of the will, a whole semester seminar on that. And one of the things my graduate school professor said is, when we read Sartre, well, where's the body come in here? You know, I mean, there are things that have to do with our body that do affect what decisions we can make. He calls us our facticity, and here I don't think he's got a very good argument. He says we can freely deny our facticity by choosing not to cross North Avenue when the traffic's there. Okay, choosing not to drink poison. Yeah, I don't intend to drink any cyanide today. But that to me is a red herring. That gets us off the track. The issue is that we can't do these things because of facts about our pre-existing human nature. In other words, we can't totally deny causality. So I say his reply misses a point. We can make some free choices, but aren't we in fact going against a pre-existing fixed human nature? We can't freely choose to make our human nature such that automobiles won't hurt us. You know, I was getting off the light rail trying to catch the shuttle, and I wasn't paying attention to the fact that one was coming in the other direction. You know, and I thought, man, Murawski, you gotta watch out here. You know, I mean, getting run over by a train can ruin your whole day, right? So, you know, I make these points that I just made that we can't remake our essence into anything we want it to be, you know. So now, yeah, others limit our choice, but we can bang on their hoods of their cars. But yeah, there again, I don't think that's as important. But so you see, for Sartre, then we're utterly free and responsible in our decisions. And so that's all I'm going to say there. Let me stop this.